All right. Good Tavach. Welcome, folks. Baruch atah Adonai melech haolam, mishahakol mibarei. L'chaim, l'chaim. It is Shloshim Yom Koydem HaChag is the phrase. 30 days, actually less than 30 days, before the auspicious and great day of Yud Shvat. Yud Shvat, 1950. The previous Rebbe passed away. And it is this day that our Rebbe became Rebbe. He only officially took the mantle of leadership a year later by the Fabringen Yud by saying a mimer. And that is, if you will, kind of the sign of acceptance of leadership is when you say a Hasidic discourse. You know, that discourse we're learning, a mimer that we're learning every day, is uniquely said by a Rebbe. So we're going to learn the discourse that the Rebbe said, which is based on the previous Rebbe. Based on the previous Rebbe's teachings, and it's called Basi Lagani. I have come to my garden. That's Achosi Kala, my sister, the bride. So, let's get right into it. Okay, these are words from King Solomon. So what does it mean? Come to my garden, my sister, the bride. So based on the previous Rebbe's discourse on this, his mimer, he brings down the Medrash. The Medrash says, Ligani lignuni, to my garden, to my bridal path, to the place where I was originally. God is speaking, right? The place that I was originally. That's where God is now returning, because the main place of the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God, is b'tachtainim, is down in this world, right? It is seemingly not the natural inclination we would have. We'd think God's presence is in a more spiritual realm. Nope, it's here. So what does it mean he's returning then? What's he returning? Because through the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and of all the sins of the generations that came thereafter, the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God, removed itself from this world and went to the spiritual realm, realm after realm. That's what happened. How does God come back? He started to come back because of Avram, Abraham, and his divine service. He brought the Shekhinah from the seventh heaven, where it was removed because of 7 generations of sins. And he brought it down from the 7th heaven to the 6th. Yitzchak and then Yaakov and so on, Yosef, until the 7th generation, which was Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. And all 7s are endeared, are special, are dear. He brought the Shekhinah, Moshe, Moses, he brought the Shekhinah into this world back. to the bridle path, where it was originally. We'll get more into that. What does that mean? This is what it means, the divine service of the Jewish people, the Amekulim Tzadikim, and you're all righteous, that the righteous have to bring down the presence of God on this in this world. But this is the uniqueness of the Jewish people. And their task in this world is to bring the divine presence of God into this world. Which is interesting because if we're aware, I'm sure we recognize that really every other faith and religion is really about, either getting reward for the next world or, but that you're seeking otherworldliness, not this world. Now, the Jewish people, the entire Jewish people, their avodah, their divine job is to bring the presence of God into this world, to make a dwelling place for God here. Therefore, right after the giving of the Torah, Moshe Rabbeinu, right after the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, which is God bringing down his presence, right? It's not that we brought down God. Yeah, I mean, in a sense, we had to prepare. We did things, but really it was God that, showed himself. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about that we did it. So where do we do it? Right after the Torah was given, God commands through Moshe, through Moses, that the Jewish people should make a mikdash v'shachanti b'seicham, make a sanctuary, and I will dwell amongst them. And it says, the verse says, amongst them, not in it, in the sanctuary, because through the sanctuary, God will dwell amongst every single one of us. That the Shechina, also mikdash, so it says mikdash. Mikdash is a sanctuary, and what they made then was a mishkan, which was the tabernacle. So mishkan, mikdash, it's interchangeable. They're both physical places that were made as a home for God, a presence of God. How do we make a home for God in the sanctuary? How do we do that? And that's from one of the divine services, one of the main divine services is bringing sacrifices. Avodas the karbanos, which the word korban, they translate as a sacrifice, comes from their closeness. Interesting. Translate comes from their closeness. That through bringing the offering on the altar, it brings us the closest to God, to the Ein Sof, and not brings our powers of our soul closer to God. And we even see that in the actual building of and the makeup of the Mishkan, of the sanctuary, that it was made of atze shitim. It was made out of acacia wood that were standing. They're called crushing planks. So this is all a metaphor to understand the deeper idea of what our divine service is. How there's that it's emblematic of what our divine service is. That the word shitim comes from shtus, which means folly. So we take folly, foolishness of the world, right? And transform that. The word olam means concealment. World means concealment. What's it concealing on? The truth of God, the truth of God's presence, the truth of God's reality. And therefore, this world becomes Alma de Shikra, a world of lies. That's what it is. It's a world of lies. Right? You could say to somebody, I love you, and not mean it. So what's our avodah? What's our divine service? Is to transform that. The folly of this world, the lie of this world, right? Which is the sheetim, the wood that's being used, right? We have to transform that into holiness. That make from sheker, which means a lie, into a keresh. The same letters, turn them around, and it makes keresh, makes a plank that makes a home for God. That's what it means that the wood of shittim are standing. Something that's standing is holding up, right? The planks actually, stood on the ground and holding up the the ceiling, right? In other words, it's connecting top and bottom, heaven and earth. Wow. In other words, very powerful, right? That this is our job, is to hold up heaven and earth, meaning to transform earth, which is a place of, a natural lie. That's the folly of this world. It's a natural lie. The lie is, I am. And God, maybe. Or even if there is a God, but, he's not the true reality. He's not authentic. I'm authentic. I'm real. My needs are real. What I want is real. That's a lie. That's the lie we live with in this world. So what we have to do is transform that. That's the offering that you bring on the altar, right? That you bring, well, what are you bringing on the altar? An animal, my animal. It says, I am, I need, I want, life's all about me and what I'm looking to accomplish, to succeed. Right. Yes, it doesn't exclude God, but that's the lie that there needs to be transformed. So when we bring our animal soul on the altar, right, which is represented by a physical animal, where we are bringing us closer to God, to the authentic and truth. So that's in the offerings, and that's in the very makeup of the home that we create for God, that's made from these planks of wood, are made from acacia wood, in Hebrew called shittim, coming, and then hidden in those words is a message that these planks, krushim, kesher, which spells the same word as sheker, but when you take the sheker, the lie of the world, and now you transform it, you turn it around and you make it into a plank to create a sanctuary of God. And the plank specifically is rooted in the bottom, holding up the ceiling. In other words, bringing heaven on earth, connecting it, heaven and earth. And this becomes our avodah. This is what our avodah. This are the divine service of the Jewish people. Therefore, the Jewish people are called Tzivos Hashem, God's army. The word army has three different explanations. Means a chayil, a soldier, the army. Also, the word tzivah means a limited time period. And it also means many different colors coming together. So what does this mean? How do the things come together? This is the beauty that comes when you are able to be inclusive, that right, that many colors come together and you see beauty. That's the inclusivity, which is the divine service of the Jewish people, meaning that we make a dwelling place for God down here to bring the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God into this world. We do that in a limited time, and as soldiers of God, in time. In other words, we do it in time and space. We don't do it in beyond this world. We do it in this world, and we do it in a manner of iskalulus, of inclusivity. And that's why we're called. That's the idea of God's army. Different idea of what an army is, right? Okay, amazing. We'll continue with Rebbe's teachings on Basi Lagani. I've come to my garden. That's what we're here to do, create this world into God's garden, not into a jungle, which by nature it is. But through our efforts, we create a garden, a garden. All right, folks. We'll see you by Chumash and Rashi shortly. Reminder to our studies tonight, and also TRC. Thank you.